That's always a rush. Welcome to the Logical Nimbus channel, where Smoke and Albert here, and I, Calvin, review the vast skies of the interwebs, and we go over the topics that we find interesting, things that we feel have lost logic. There's a lot of very complex problems in the world, and we feel with our experience, we can chat through them, break them down, make them simple. So you're probably wondering what's with the whole cloud head. I mean, look, I honestly don't even know either. I kind of woke up like this. And you're going to want to hit the subscribe button because, one, you're going to figure out who the hell I am and where this is all going. And also hit the bell. Why? Because we're not on some schedule. Me and Albert have shit to do. But when things come about and there's problems that we're seeing that just need to be said, we have to speak up. It's just getting way too crazy. So our goal with this channel is to break down very complex problems, make them very simple, so you sound smarter around the water cooler, if you're at work or at school or at family table, whatever it is, we're going to come up with a conclusion on each video. Now, the conclusion is just at the time with the information we have. We're always going to change. That's the great thing about logic. New information changes your ideas, changes the way you're going to think, and changes your answer. So we're going to do some light work today. Okay, Albert, show 'em. That's right, Key and Peele. Key and Peele versus Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I found it funny that there was this comparison between Key and Peele and Trump and J.D. Vance. And let's look at this video real quick. Maybe some of you have seen it. Most of you maybe not. All right, so that's Key and Peele, and they did an amazing skit where it's funny, right? They're talking about Obama's character is always calm, cool, collected, but what he's really thinking was Peele. I don't know actually which one's which. But that's good. I like it. So what I found interesting was that Trump and Vance, they're different, right? They're actually opposite. It's like Trump is the crazy wild one saying all this crazy shit, and then Vance has to come in. And I saw a clip today from the Rubin Report that we're going to watch right here, where J.D. Vance is actually speaking calmly and interpreting for what Trump says. Let's take a listen.
Something the president said that I think bears re-emphasizing, which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means on the one hand you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control, and we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job. If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right,
Okay, so that makes sense, right? I just found it funny that there's that comparison where JD feels like he has to speak for Trump and not apologize, but be the more calming voice for him, which is why I think they're actually going to be work very well together. With that being said, what I want to do now is go into what he was saying with this whole DEI thing. I saw people on Instagram and even my own friends posting stuff and saying, well, this is what you get for signing that executive order and doing the hiring freeze. And so I was like, well, shit, I mean, we saw the 2 planes go down, one in Philadelphia now, as early as yesterday, and one a couple of days ago in D.C., and you're thinking, well, shit, maybe that did do something. And this is where we're going to dive into how we're going to do very quick searches and what you can do to figure out the answer so you can sound smarter amongst your friends and family. Very simply, you type in, did Trump's hiring freeze affect the air traffic controller position? So you get a few. You'll see Newsweek, PBS, and there's some biases to this, and we'll get into this later, and I'll show you some ways of going around that. But what I did was I clicked on PBS, which I think is a little more left-leaning, and did Trump's, let's see, the title here is, did Trump's firing of aviation officials contribute to the D.C. crash? Experts say it's unlikely. Okay, so I read it, and I highlighted some things we'll go over right now. Trump, in his first week in office, did announce sweeping personnel changes, including a hiring freeze, but aviation experts said there was little that Trump did that could have precipitated the crash between a commercial jet from Wichita, Kansas, and a military Black Hawk helicopter. There was simply too little time, less than 10 days after Trump was sworn in, for any of his broadly worded executive orders to have had an effect, experts said. Although the Transportation Safety Administration, the U.S. Coast Guard, and the Aviation Security Advisory Committee all play roles in aviation safety, the actions by President Trump would not have led to such an immediate impact, says this Jim Cardoso guy, a former U.S. Air Force colonel and pilot who is now senior director of the University of South Florida's Global and National Security Institute. All the processes to control and deconflict air traffic in the D.C. area have been well established for a long time. The personnel involved in this accident, air crew from the two aircraft, and the air controllers in place at the time of the accident would similarly not have been affected by the recent policy changes in Trump's executive orders since January 20th. Now, that's PBS, which I think is a little left-leaning. You always want to check a few other facts. I looked at another very random article. This is from, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania came up. Air traffic controllers were initially offered buyouts and told to consider leaving government. Let's take a look. There's no evidence that the White House effort to downsize government played any role in this collision with shortages of air traffic controllers long predating Trump's taking office. But those who've worked in air safety say that those who tried to dramatically shake up the federal workforce need to remember that lives are on the line. And that is true. And that's why me and Albert had to step in here, very quickly review. It's very easy to jump to conclusions and say, this was DEI. Okay, that's too easy. Or this was Trump's fault. Too easy. We need to look at the facts. And I think it's also important that when we're reading these articles, we're very aware of where we're getting these sources. And here's a site I want to share with you. It's called All Sides. Now, All Sides, I actually haven't looked into it. I don't know, maybe All Sides is biased too. But apparently they do media biases. And you can go to the media bias. You can come down here and it basically rates it. And it's rated based on viewers, right? So we can come here. Let's see. Go down to right here, and we can type in PBS. You can read all about this for yourself, but here's PBS NewsHour, and it is left-leaning, or Twin Cities PBS, which is center. So we read from PBS, which is a little more left-leaning, which is I am aware, but I think they wrote a decent article from what I read that was a little more center. But it's a good one to check out. Now, what I found funny is that Newsweek, these people, they have their own checking, their own meter, which I found funny because I'll refresh. There's no tricks up my sleeve here. And we click it, and this is about what? Trump signed sweeping tariffs on Canada. And at the bottom, I don't advise this. You go to the bottom, they have a fairness meter that they did themselves, and that shit's basically breaking off. Unfair leaning left, which I found just funny to me. You click on another article about the fairness meter. So I looked up, okay, well, was it made by them or is it a third party? And a fairness meter that Newsweek began attaching to its online stories more than a year ago has been generating, let's see when this article was. Okay, so 2023. Has been generating strong support from readers according to the publication, though some industry observers find the idea of the ratings articles for bias unnecessary. The meter, featured at the end of most of the news outlets' stories, give readers a chance to decide if the article is biased or not based on 5 potential choices, including unfair, leaning left, or fair. So that is their own thing, but I feel like every time I click on an article, let's just go to another one. Oh, well, anything Trump, I feel, but if you click, let's see what this guy's got. You go to the bottom, and that needle is breaking off. But I think that media biases are going to review. So, Albert, let's talk about this. We reviewed the information. I think it's very clear with the information I have now that, from Trump's perspective, DEI, was the traffic controller white? Was he black? I have no idea what race that person was at this point, so we can't determine that. I think there's a lot of factors just playing into that besides the color of someone's skin. But as for what I've seen and what I've read, no, Trump's freeze did not have anything to do with this conflict, with this tragedy that happened. And I think that right now we just need to gather the data, and we need to just take it in strides and gather more information. And when we get more information, Albert and I will be happy to look at it. Now, we are we're not too far off when I was looking at from our 1 million subscriber goal. We're at 255, so that's about 9,999,000 and around 700 and change left to go, which I'm sure with your help, by sharing with your friends and acknowledging this information and discussing it, that we'll get there in, about 25 to 30 plus years. So thank you for your time. Don't take my advice on all this. Search it yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.